There's a huge link between confidence and success, more than between experience and success. So the more people are confident, the more successful they are. And women are typically less confident than men. A woman to kind of end up with a leadership team who are only men. But as the CEO, I also had to make the choice based on who I felt were the right people. What does being the best candidate mean? And there's probably an aspect that I'm biased, that I see the best candidate being the most confident candidate. As women, we also have some biases in terms of what we've seen as the leaders that we've worked with and what are their personality traits, and therefore what we expect from the people that we recruit.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Not too far, just up the
Yeah,
road.
not too far. Yeah. That's very convenient.
Exactly. I start off all of my interviews by letting my guest introduce themselves. So, what is important for the audience to know about you at this stage of your life and career?
So obviously, as you can hear, I'm French. I've been in the UK for the past 15 years now. Grew up in France, then studied in close to Paris, and then moved to India for my first job. I was there for 5 years. I loved it. And I met my husband in India, so he's Indian. He then got a job in the UK. He wanted to work abroad in the same way as I had wanted to work abroad before that. And so we decided to move to London. And yeah, we've been here for 15 years. My background is actually in finance, more in-house in corporate finance. But I've always wanted to do something more purposeful. And so when I came to the UK, I worked for initially British Telecom and then moved to a charity focused on helping adolescent girls in developing countries get more confidence and feel more empowered. So using the power of brand to rebrand the role that girls think they have, but also help rebrand the role that girls have within their community. And so using the power of media to do that. So kind of a really interesting charity, which was actually a private-public partnership. So in some ways, kind of purpose and has always been a part of my journey. I did a lot of volunteering before that. And the idea for Oddbox came. So I grew up in the countryside. My grandparents on both sides were potato farmers. We had a huge veg plot. And when I came to the UK, I was quite amazed by the fact that in the UK, you can find everything all year round. So you can get strawberries in winter, but they don't necessarily taste great. And in France, even now, you can't get everything all year round. We went on holiday to France in June. We were looking for green beans. We couldn't find green beans anywhere. In the UK, you find green beans everywhere all year round, but they are imported from Kenya, green beans. So there's such a difference in the food culture, the food landscape, the retail landscape here. And at that time, I didn't really do anything about it. But then fast forward 5 years later, we went on holiday to Portugal. And there we would go to the local market to do our food shopping every day and had these amazing tomatoes, which were ugly. And then I came back, kind of started doing a bit of research into why the retail landscape is so different in the UK compared to mainland Europe, and came across the fact that there's a lot of specification on produce, and that creates actually waste. And so I didn't know about the issue of food waste until then. I also came across a campaign by a French supermarket around ugly fruit and veg, and came across 2 startups in the US who had started something very similar to Oddbox. And that's what actually gave me the idea for Oddbox. So it was something which had been done somewhere else that didn't exist in the UK, and I thought there was quite a big opportunity. And in some ways, what I liked about working for a charity was the strong purpose. So in a charity, it's difficult to measure the final outcome. You can measure the output. So you put money in a project, you can measure how many people participate. It's difficult to measure the actual impact that you have in terms of, for the charity I was working with, how do you really measure the change in behavior, the change in mindset? You can do surveys, but the tangible, it's not very tangible. And as a kind of finance person, and maybe it's kind of also my personality, I like tangible things. And so in some ways, with Oddbox, then we associate, there's a strong purpose, but we know exactly how many growers we help. We know exactly how many tons of produce we've rescued. And so that kind of ticks my two main boxes, which is kind of it's a physical product, it's very tangible, we know exactly the impact that we're having, but also it's got a strong purpose and social impact. So I don't know if that really answers your question about what people should know about me. So obviously, I'm kind of I'm the founder of Oddbox, so started it, and then my husband very early joined the journey, and so we've been co-founder from the very start. Wasn't really on purpose, but it's worked really well, and we've got a 5-year-old that we adopted when she was 18 months old. So we've gone through the journey of fertility treatments that didn't work. And it was frustrating because I had no control. We didn't know why it wasn't working. And I had no control around what I could really do because the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. And so I had always thought about adoption. So I had always told my husband, we'll have 2 of our own children and we'll adopt 2 children. And so I finally moved to kind of, therefore, let's just go through the adoption route because we can control exactly that process. There's kind of a very clear process to be able to adopt. And then there's a clear process to get a match. That means that we've been able to be parents, and we've been very lucky that that process has been very smooth for us.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing. I'd love to go into personal side of life later on, but I found it interesting how you said you really are drawn to the tangible things that can be measured.
Yeah.
And on the outside, the business, you can measure how many growers you're supporting, how many tons of food waste you're saving. But then there are so many parts inside the business which aren't tangible and very difficult to measure. The things that come to mind are culture, values, perceptions within a team, brand recognition or brand perception. How do you think about the balance of tangible and intangible points of measuring when it comes to these aspects of company building?
Yes, you're right. There's lots of things which are kind of a bit more difficult to be measured, and maybe it's not as black and white, and I'm not as black and white as kind of everything needs to be measurable. And I'm more aware of maybe when we started Oddbox, it was more about the actual physical impact that we could have. Though we've always said that it was about changing behaviors and mindset, so it was never only about the amount of food that we would rescue. But my belief is that actually mindset and behaviors, to change mindset and behavior, then it needs to start with a small action. And so we've always said Oddbox is that first step that people take towards becoming more sustainable. So I think it's not so much about it needs to be measurable. There's a part that I like that it's measurable, But I strongly believe that to really change your behavior and your mindset, there's something inside you. You can do affirmations, you can do meditation, you can do all of these things. But unless you take action, then you're not really changing. And action can be that positive flywheel that you see some benefit, and then you can take one more action. And over time, then it makes for a huge behavior and mindset shift. But I also strongly believe in the power of brand, and maybe having worked in that charity where brand was so central. So it was set up by Nike, and Nike is all about the community, the brand, and so I worked with a lot of brand people. So I really started appreciating the power that brands have. Like people buy Apple because then they feel that it gives them a feeling of being more innovative. People buy Nike because of the campaign that they have around everyone is an athlete. So there's a really emotional side to a brand. And I guess from that experience, I understand the power that brands have as well. It's that flywheel. It's not only action, it's also about mindset, and it's also about behavior. And you need to address all the aspects of the flywheel. Just action without mindset shift don't work. Working on either of these can accelerate, and working on all of them will actually accelerate that positive flywheel.
So if we break this down for Oddbox, the place we start, I'm assuming, is the mindset. When you think about the flywheel,
Yep.
the association that Oddbox has is the customer feels like they're being more sustainable.
Yes.
That seems quite obvious. Apple makes people think they're more innovative. Nike makes everyone think that they're an athlete. Oddbox makes everyone feel like they're more sustainable.
Yep.
But underneath those three things, we're more innovative such that we can achieve our goals and feel fulfilled and live our most full life. We want, like, everyone's an athlete, makes us feel confident that we can be healthy and live a long life. What's the feeling that underpins people wanting to be more sustainable?
I think all of us know that we've got a climate crisis, and all of us want to contribute and want to feel that we're doing our part in solving that. And that's what we've tried to do with Oddbox. And maybe in some ways we've realized now that we've failed, or we're not doing it well enough for enough people. Initially, we said Oddbox is an easy way to do something good for the planet, where it's not actually that easy. And our messaging has sometimes been kind of slightly conflicted, in a sense that we've said it's that easy way to do something good for the planet, but we've also said Oddbox is not very convenient. The only thing which is convenient is that it's delivered to your door. But apart from that, you only receive it once a week on a day that we set. You don't choose what you have in the box. It's quite a lot of root and veg, and you need to cook with it. So it takes a lot of effort. And so now we're actually thinking about how do we make it even actually more convenient for more people, because for people who are confident cook, for people who like the surprise, for people who actually like to be creative, Oddbox works really well. Plus, it makes them feel that they're doing something good for the planet. And from the start, we've always had leaflets in the box, which not only give them a recipe, but also provide stories on what's happening in the industry, stories of the growers that we work with, in kind of a fun and relatable way, for people to feel good about it, not for people to feel guilty that they're not doing enough. And we also tell them about all the produce, why it was rescued, where it's come from. And so there's always been that storytelling element being a big part of the Oddbox proposition. It's not only fruit and veg that people receive. It's also kind of knowing what impact they've had, who they've been helping, kind of sharing actually what we've learned about the industry. And that's been a fascinating journey for us. And for me, it's always been kind of, I want to share what I'm learning because the produce industry is so interesting. We don't think a lot about how it's grown and what it's taken to be on our plate. But there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of challenges, there's kind of the weather is still very unpredictable, even though there's a lot more innovation to forecast produce. What I found interesting, and I kind of assumed other people would also find that interesting.
The thing that stood out to me was that this brand's balancing act when it comes to making it easy for people to do one thing, which is the sustainability part, but also then it's actually quite challenging if you're not
Confident cooks.
And we spoke briefly before about how great brands make it not feel like their more sustainable option feels like a compromise.
Yeah.
That we are having to give up something or it's harder to be sustainable. What does it look like for Oddbox in terms of not only being sustainable, but also feeling like it's a better experience or a better product altogether?
In some ways, for the first 6 years of Oddbox, we didn't make it easier. We focused more on solving the problem for the grower and less on solving a problem for the customer. And that's meant that we are a bit at, we reached a plateau where we know the size of our audience, the size of the people for whom it's not a compromise, because that's the way they were already shopping. They would already pick different types of fruit and veg and then come up with meal plans, recipes based on what they had chosen. And so it's not, we're not adding mental load in their life because they like being creative, but we're rolling out customization. So people start with the standard box, but they can now swap everything in the box. It's not unlimited. We don't offer everything that supermarkets offer, but at least we offer more choice. Because somebody who's never cooked a cabbage or a swede, it's very overwhelming to receive this produce in their box and having to think, okay, what do I do now with that cabbage, with that swede? And even though we provide the recipes, what we found is that people would leave it in the back of their fridge, and actually it makes people feel even worse because they subscribe because they want to tackle food waste, and they end up wasting a lot in their box. So by offering more customization, we tackle. We don't push the problem of food waste from farm to home. It's more of a compromise that at least people it's still all rescued produce, but they've got more choice, they've got more control, and they can choose the things that they know they are going to cook and eat. It's been a journey for me to actually feel that it wasn't a compromise, or it was the right compromise. And it's been a journey for also the team to feel the same way.
Because previously when you started, you thought this is just how we should live. We should just be responsive in terms of what food is ripe in that season, and therefore we should just cook to the food. But actually, customers are so used to this on demand, get whatever they want whenever they want. Yeah. And so you're fighting a losing battle. Is that?
Yes, and also it takes some time. So for somebody who's already quite an experienced cook, it's not a big challenge to get a cabbage. For somebody who's not, then it's a massive challenge. And so for me, I see it as people are on a different spectrum, and we're providing a solution for only a niche of people who are here. But what about the people who want to do something good, but are at a different stage? For people who hardly cook, just cooking simple things like a stir fry is a challenge. So asking them to cook a full cabbage is just too much. And so it's more about being more responsive and supportive to where people are in their journey. It's like kind of in terms of running, if somebody has has never done a run, then you can't give them a challenge of doing a marathon. You give them a challenge of doing a 5K. Our proposition was you might not cook at all, or you might not run at all. Just here is the steps to run a marathon. And that doesn't work. The reality of life is that nobody is able to do the perfect thing. We've got busy life, and the things which have worked the best, the changes which are not difficult. Like people have switched from plastic straws to paper straws. It's hardly a compromise. And so it makes people feel good that they're doing something which is better for the planet. And it's been adopted in mass because it's a very small compromise. And so there's some benefit in asking people to start with small compromises. Again, going back to that flywheel of small actions can add up to something big.
That all is built on an awareness of where the customer is at within their journey. Now, you've had an amazing sort of journey with Oddbox. It started in 2015, and then you had like 20 customers and sort of relaunched again in 2016 after fixing some supply issues with those 20 customers. And 2016 was just going from 20 to 60 customers. You went from 60 to 600 customers 2017, and then 2018 was 400 customers in January and February, and that's when it really picked up. How many customers do you serve now?
50,000 customers.
50,000. So how do you understand what these different customer segments need?
So we do that in several different ways, but the best way is actually to just pick up the phone and talk to people. So I still regularly will reach out to customers and just have a conversation. Surveys are helpful to validate insights, but to kind of get through insight, really understand kind of the pain points, there's no better way than actually talking to a few customers.
That sounds like an amazing thing that doesn't scale.
No, it's not scalable. And you listen to Brian Chesky from Airbnb, and kind of he talks a lot about that. That's not scalable, but that enables me to stay close to the customer. It's quite important that I stayed close to the customer so that I understand some of the pain points that they have now that they might not have. The landscape in retail has changed so much with all the quick delivery services that when we started Oddbox, maybe there were Deliveroo and Just Eat, but it was just the beginning of Deliveroo. And Just Eat was just doing takeaway. Deliveroo similarly was just doing takeaway. There was no quick delivery grocery. And so things have changed. So needs are changing with COVID. Needs are changing. So you don't get the same thing from a survey than what you can get from a conversation. And obviously, you can't just rely on speaking to one customer, but it starts with speaking to one-to-one to customers. And so we've done that recently because we are thinking about what else can we do to fulfill more of our customer needs. So we've worked with an innovation consultant, and our head of product has done 30 different interviews with customers, 1.5 hour long interviews, and we gathered some insight from there. And then we did a survey with 3,000 customers and non-customers to validate some of these insights. And so there's a process that you don't just rely on kind of one insight. And then we've got our customer happiness team who do all the customer care, who every week during our trading meeting, will bring some insight, some feedback. So there's kind of different mechanism. We also through in our kind of sign up flow at the end, we ask people what made you sign up, and was there one thing which kind of, almost made you not sign up, so that we get so there's different ways to collecting insight from customers, and but it's, I would say, yeah, it's quite important even at this stage for everyone to regularly speak to customers. And it's not necessarily difficult because everybody knows some of their friends or family or people they meet who are customers or have been customers.
Quick 25-second pause to talk about how startup leaders are athletes of the mind. And just like an athlete, you should treat your health as your number one priority. You can't show up for others if you're depleted. You can't pour from an empty cup, which is why my friend Dan's company, Heights, is a partner of the show. Heights are the world's best brain and gut supplements. I've been taking Heights for a couple of years and I feel like an elite mental athlete. It's a bit of a no-brainer. Click on the link in the description and start reaching your heights.
You're now on quite a scaling journey. You've raised over 20 million. You have 60 people. Lots of these activities you could delegate, but you're choosing to stay close to the customers by you personally having phone calls with some of them. What other aspects of the business feel important for you to stay close to as you scale?
So because of my finance background, I'll always stay close to the numbers. and obviously, without cash, then we don't have a business. And I don't know if there's kind of one area. So I understand tech less. So in some ways, I want to learn more of it. So I'm kind of trying to stay quite close to the product and the tech. I don't know if there's actually really one area where I would say I don't stay close to. I've done recently some work with our senior people manager on our values. So I led an exercise with the team. So I actually did some work with a coach on our values. I felt that our values were right, but not really unique to us. And so I wanted to slightly change them.
What were they?
It was mindful, entrepreneurial, inclusive, and transparent. And these are quite generic, or at least I felt that they were quite generic. And in the past, we've kind of done some exercise to turn them into puns, so people know us for like the veg puns that we have in our letters, in our email, and somehow we never finished that exercise, so we stayed with the words. I wanted to rethink about them, and so we're in the process of changing them. So we don't have the final values yet, but slightly changing that. So the people and the culture part is also an aspect that I think about quite a lot.
What the values, what the words are, feel like that it's less important than how they are lived out within the company.
Yeah, and that was also one of the things that I wanted to change them from words to actions, and because and more behaviors than words. And I wanted some of them to be the behaviors we have right now, and some of them to be more aspirational behaviors, how we want to be, how we need to be to get to that next stage of growth for Oddbox.
Through this process, how much do you include the team versus how much are you working with this consultant?
Yeah.
What's the balance there?
So that's a discussion that I had with my coach, where So I did the exercise with the coach of coming up with 5 values. And then I discussed with the coach, should I actually rerun that session with the team, or should I propose the values and get feedback? And initially, I was going to rerun the exercise. And then my coach asked me or told me, don't ask the team or don't ask input from the team unless you really want the input. And so what I realized is that I didn't really want the team to come up with the values. I wanted their help with refining them. And so I ended up running the session with these are what I've done with the coach. These are the 5 values I came up with. That's my reasoning. That's kind of the behaviors that I want to, that I think we display, that's the behaviors that I would like us to display more of. Give me your feedback. Tell me which one you feel we're already displaying. Give me examples of how you've seen this displayed. Tell me if you think we're missing something. But the advice from the coach was don't ask for feedback or input unless you actually really want the feedback or input. Otherwise, it's just not genuine. And so that's kind of now something that I think about when I ask somebody for something is, what do I really want from that person? Instead of just thinking, okay, it will sound inclusive if I involve the person, but actually I don't really care about their opinion or what they are going to say, because I'm already quite clear on what I want to do. And so that balance of being not trying to be inclusive for the sake of being inclusive, and feeling that it's fine for me to be directive in some cases, and that's something that I'm getting better at. And I've had some feedback from my team on we want you to make the decision on some of these things, or it's fine for we actually expect you in that case to tell us what to do, versus my approach was more I don't feel that I should be really making a lot of the decision, because it doesn't feel inclusive. But in some cases, it's not helpful if I don't make the decision.
Interestingly, the values feel to me like they're the thing which needs buy-in from everyone in the company.
Yeah.
And so therefore, if everyone in the company felt like they'd contributed towards the values,
Yeah.
you're likely to get more buy-in. What was the logic behind you feeling it was a better route to be more directive with the values as opposed to democratic?
So they can still contribute, and they still contributed in terms of providing their feedback. But actually, we did a bit of a pulse survey and asked people, what do you think about our values, and what do you think they should be changed to? And we got pretty much the same as what we had, and we still got a lot of generic values. And so I felt that by starting from scratch, we wouldn't necessarily get to where I wanted to end. And so it's not so much that I didn't want people to contribute. It was the level of contribution, and at what was more valuable for me in terms of the type of contribution. It wasn't with coming up with the values from scratch. It was more, here is where I'm at. Can you help me get them finalized? Then I got a lot of feedback. I took that feedback on board. We merged actually 2 of the values based on the feedback. And I'm going to come back to the team with, again, that's again where we're at. And these are kind of some of the behaviors that we think everyone should be displaying, and some of these things will be behaviors that we're trying to embed more of. Like we're doing a lot around feedback and encouraging more of a culture of feedback, and people feeling comfortable with providing much more regular feedback, on the spot feedback, and the way people should provide feedback, and not necessarily just nice feedback, but also a mix of kind of positive and constructive feedback. That will be one of the behavior under one of the value. Now we're going to work with these values and these behaviors for a period of time, see what works, what doesn't work, and then refine them potentially 6 months after that.
Are you happy to share what the updated value statements or behaviors are now?
Yeah, so it's not yet finalized. So one is staying odd or being odd, and or kind of, and challenging the norms. One is around resourcefulness, and it's a bit similar to entrepreneurial, but the whole ethos behind Oddbox is um, uh, there's a lot of resources available at risk of going to waste, and how do we make the most of the resources? But it's something which actually is a value which is very much already an Oddbox value that we deliver overnight because it's more resourceful. We reuse or sell the boxes if they can be reused. So there's a lot of aspects of resourcefulness that we already have within Oddbox.
The value of being odd reminds me of you striving to create quite a diverse team.
Yep.
And an environment where people can be themselves, be truly authentic, be odd, and be welcome in the team. And that then leads to lots of different perspectives. It leads to debates and people feeling comfortable to disagree with something. How have you contributed to that space being safe such that people do feel ready to do that?
In terms of DNA initiatives, we're doing a bit less now, but I would say we're not necessarily diverse enough, or as diverse as I would like us to be. So it's still very much kind of a journey. Obviously, kind of being a woman, I don't know, maybe I think about diversity a bit more. I'm a bit kind of self-aware of some of these things. Being a mom, I'm more self-aware of kind of some of the challenges of balancing kind of work and life, or work and parenting. And so we've done in terms of some of the policies with. So we've got a menopause policy, for example, which is now more companies have that, but it's still not very prevalent. We've got obviously an adoption policy, so it goes beyond just maternity. We've got maternity, paternity, but also kind of adoption and parental policies. Our board was a bit more diverse. It's now less diverse. And I tried to kind of keep it diverse. Similarly, I've been doing some recruitment, so we went through 2 restructure, one in 22 and one in 23. And so in 23, I had to kind of let our leadership team go, as C-suite go, and now we're in a better financial position that we can afford to invest and in kind of pushing a bit more for kind of growth and changing the proposition. And so I've recently recruited for a finance director and a chief growth officer, and I tried quite hard to make sure that we had a good gender balance in the process, that we had kind of some other diversity in the recruitment process. But I've ended up with 2 men, and it's in some ways it pains me a bit as a woman to kind of end up with a leadership team who are only men. But as kind of the CEO, I also had to make the choice based on who I felt were the right people for what we needed, both in terms of kind of experience, but also culture fit. Um, and therefore, now I need to kind of work on how do I focus on helping the women who are at the next level of management to the leadership team. So yeah, and I think as women, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to kind of try to bring diversity to support other women, but we also have some biases. In the conversation before the podcast, I went to an event 2 days ago. It's Women in Tech and Startup. Sally, who's from Carwow, was talking about a project that they are leading at Carwow around confidence and confidence, women and confidence. And they did a survey of their management and leadership team, asking both men and women to rate themselves in terms of self-confidence and confidence at work. It was striking that most of the women were at the bottom of the ranking, and most of the men were at the top. So, and both in terms of self-confidence and confidence at work. And what it started from them reading a book called The Confidence Code around the link between confidence and success, more than between experience and success. So the more people are confident, the more successful they are. And women are typically less confident than men. And so that also will impact their ability to go to the next level. And one of the also kind of very striking stats that she mentioned from the book is that even out of university, men and women are asked about how they value themselves in monetary terms. Women undervalue themselves by 20% compared to men, just out of university with exactly the same background. Obviously, that impacts the number of candidates who will apply for senior roles, but it also impacts how women will come across in interviews and how they will perform in the role, because as women, we are less confident overall.
And that confidence compounds over time.
Yeah.
If you're more confident, you'll reach to get the job that is maybe a bit above your skills.
Yeah. And that will give you more confidence.
Exactly. Yeah. If you get that, then you execute on that, as opposed to not and then staying.
You know, as a CEO, it's quite difficult to decide, should I have gone for a woman, somebody who's from an ethnic minority or a different background, to rebalance the scale, or do I choose who I think is the best candidate for the role? And maybe I've got a bias in terms of what is, when I talk about the best candidate, what does being the best candidate mean? And there's probably an aspect of that I'm biased, that I see the best candidate being the most confident candidate as well. So I think we, as women, we also have some biases in terms of what we've seen as the leaders that we've worked with, and what are their personality traits, and therefore what we expect from the people that we recruit.
I love what you said about focusing on the women in your team who are at that second layer of management and working on helping them develop to then get to senior management. And my fiance taught me about the difference between gender equality and gender equity recently. Equality being we should treat everyone exactly the same. Equity being we should treat people based on what they need.
Yeah.
And so how do you promote gender equity within the business? How are you treating your female employees, middle managers, specifically as to what they as women need?
I don't think we do a lot. One of the things that we do is on a quarterly basis, we have a lunch with all the women and talk about all kind of different subjects. And in the past, we've done kind of peer-to-peer mentoring or coaching or kind of different levels of mentoring and coaching. But just discussing it today makes me think I need to do more, and therefore that puts more pressure on me that I've recruited men that I actually need to do something more for the women at that next level, because unless I get them a coach, get them kind of formal training, do something proactively, that's not going to happen.
What do you think have been the biggest contributing factors to your confidence as a female founder?
I think my family, my parents. I think there's a part which is I would say kind of maybe genetic, because my sister is very successful, but she's a lot less confident than I am, and obviously we've got the same background. We've got 1 year difference. I'm older, and in some ways she's kind of always compared herself to me. We've done very similar kind of studies, and being just 1 year apart, then probably made it quite difficult for her, and she felt she had to work a lot more than I did. I don't think she necessarily needed to kind of work so hard compared to me, but because she had less confidence, she actually overcompensated by studying a lot harder. So I don't know kind of really what I think some of my experiences, I think kind of overall, I'm quite positive and resilient, and that's given me some confidence. I think of trying different things um, and pushing forward and seeing some successes has given me that confidence. I'm not always very confident, and so actually I've typically will ask Deepak, who's my husband and co-founder, his opinion on some of the things before I make some of the decisions, to actually give me the confidence to make the decision or to kind of take some action. So sometimes I might display confidence because I've validated that kind of decision or that action with somebody else.
A lot of the time we have to act as founders without confidence, though.
Yeah, there's lots of times, because then the in some ways the difference between kind of a founder and somebody working kind of as an employee. As founder, we also have the ability to show less confidence. I was reflecting on the fact that since starting Oddbox, my network is so much bigger than it was before. And so I'm part of several different kind of founders group, women founders group, women groups, and I don't mind kind of saying, oh, I don't know that, or kind of, what do you think about that? Can you help me with this thing? Whilst when you're an employee, you're expected to kind of actually have the answer. And so as an employee, you stay typically in a functional area and you grow in that functional area. It's pretty difficult to move sideways. You can make small sideways move, but if you start in finance, it's going to be difficult to end up in a marketing role. As a founder, you have to do a bit of everything, and you actually have that luxury of saying, I don't know anything about marketing. Do you have an IR to kind of teach me, or can I pick your brain on this? And I can do it even now, 8 years into the business. So I would say, yes, I need to be able to display some confidence on some of the decisions, but I can also equally say, that's not my area of expertise. What do you think? Or I can say, go and talk to another founder and say, what approach have you taken on in terms of deciding which subscription platform to use? Because that's not my area of expertise. I can't really make a very informed decision. So I don't know. We have to kind of display and make quite a lot of decisions, but we also have kind of that luxury of being able to say, it's all new for me. I don't know.
And then there's also this gap between what founders put out online
Yeah.
and the signaling of how well people are doing
Yeah.
and how much confidence they have versus the reality, which is barely any confidence most of the time.
Yeah.
And then that's putting a gap between people looking to come into entrepreneurship and knowing very little, not having any confidence, and people who are in entrepreneurship also not really having very much confidence, but saying they do.
Yeah. And obviously, I'm older, so I had kind of 15 years career before starting Oddbox. So there's some areas where I feel more confident in terms of I manage team before I understand finance, but equally I see kind of all the people just out of university, and I'm in awe of how much they're able to kind of do when they don't have that experience. So just because I'm kind of a more experienced professional don't necessarily mean I have more confidence than somebody who's just starting out of university. I'm part of the founders group, and that's an amazing network because people are very vulnerable and will not try to project an image of they've got it all figured out, and people can ask any question, whether it's around the business or personal. But LinkedIn has become the new Facebook. I blocked LinkedIn on my phone to avoid looking at it too often. And I've made the decision not to post on LinkedIn because right now I need to focus on getting the business back on track and internally. And the Oddbox brand is quite well known. So there's kind of not... I didn't feel there was a lot of value for me to be on LinkedIn, but once in a while I've got FOMO, and I'm like, I think, should I be posting more on LinkedIn? But what will I talk about? There are so many people who share a lot of really kind of amazing insights. I don't feel I've got really a lot of amazing insights to share. Yeah, I'm quite kind of critical of myself as well. Do I have a lot that I can bring to other people? When I looked at LinkedIn, I feel no, there's some people who post amazing things. I might not be one of them, so maybe it's better I actually let them post. I think it puts pressure on that on people that you need to have it all figured out. You also need to work on your own personal brand alongside the business, alongside the business brand. Everybody has got imposter syndrome, and it's quite nice sometimes to kind of hear about some of the struggles more than what's working. People think that right now Oddbox is doing really well. Yes, we've had a massive growth during COVID, but post COVID, it's been really challenging, and it's still challenging, and we're still not in a great place. So it's still a struggle, and I thought the struggle was at the start, and then once you had gone through the first 2 years of having doing everything yourself, and every couple of days a driver not turning up, or a van breaking down, or the produce not being the right quality, and at the start, every week, 1 week we were thinking everything is going fine. The next week, we were thinking actually it's not. We don't have a really a viable business. Let's just shut it down. So we're not at that stage anymore of being so up and down, but it's still really challenging. Different types of challenge.
Quick pause to talk about Unplugged. Unplugged is the ultimate reset for your mind, body, and soul. It'll challenge you in ways that you didn't expect, and it'll nourish you in ways that you didn't realize you needed. Unplugged is a digital detox cabin experience where you lock your phones and other devices away and reconnect with nature and yourself. I've been a bunch of times. I'm an investor, and I even proposed to my wonderful fiance at an Unplugged. They're magical, they're soulful, they're needed. And if you work your ass off, then you probably need it. So give yourself the respect of a reset. Click on the link in the description below and have a proper switch off. Now back to the episode.
What feels challenging at the moment?
What feels challenging is that we've reached, people love the brand. They don't love, most people don't love the proposition. We've got a lot of people who try it and churn because actually we've made it too complicated to do something good. And we're still, so we've made some changes in terms of introducing customization, but that's not enough. So we still need to change and expand the proposition to make it a lot more convenient. And so we're still on that journey of pivoting the business, trying to find again product market fit. We've got product market fit with very confident cooks who love a challenge, but that's a niche. There's not a lot of people like that. We don't have product market fit with a broader audience. And my ambition is to have an impact at scale. And so I want to basically be able to make the proposition much broader, more convenient, so that we can get more people to get on the journey with us. It takes time to change the proposition, to really think about what needs can we fulfill, how do we reduce the pain points with the current proposition, and we haven't really figured all of that out yet. Will do you ever figure everything out? I'm not sure, but
I don't think you do. But I suppose that is the challenge, is just moving forward and acting without having all the answers, without being entirely confident. We're coming near to the end, so I'd love to ask briefly about specifically your relationship with Deepak, your husband and co-founder. What is specifically positive and what's challenging about having your co-founder being your husband and life partner?
We've been asked that question in the past, but actually people also ask about co-founder relationship in general. But that's the way the question is typically asked. Is there's my own perception that it's asked in a way that husband-wife co-founder relationship might appear as less professional than a co-founder relationship, which isn't a family relationship. If you think about it, in the past, most businesses were family businesses. And so that's that was kind of how businesses were passed from generation to generation. The amazing thing is that when you have to build kind of a partner relationship, you have to kind of build a strong level of trust. You need to be able to deal with disagreements, manage kind of conflicts. We've taken that into the business. We support each other, we trust each other in front of the team. We might not agree on all the decisions that either of us take, but we'll support, we won't kind of in front of the team disagree with something that the other has made as a decision. We didn't have to build that in the initial stages of starting the business, which if you don't know your co-founder, you actually really need to build that trust, and it takes time. Do we have boundaries? No, we don't have boundaries, and that's worked for us. That we talk about Oddbox all the time. A bit less nowadays that we've got a 5-year-old, because obviously she's not that interested in us talking about the business at the dinner table. And we work less at the weekend. I still work a lot in the evening. Deepak don't work so much in the evening because he's more of a morning person. I'm more of a night owl. Because we have 60 people, then also we don't need to get too involved in the day-to-day. So we don't get woken up in the middle of the night with kind of driver issues anymore. It's it's our logistics partner now who manages all of that. Challenges. So Deepak has made the decision to transition from an exec to a non-exec role. So he'll remain on the board, but he liked the earlier part of the journey where it was kind of more the hustle and a much smaller team being able to make decisions much faster, and he enjoys less that part of the journey. I still love it, and I love working with people, and I love kind of developing people. And over the past 1.5 years, he's been focusing on kind of more of a startup project within Oddbox, which is launching our own Oddbox branded product, so cooking paste that we've launched in D2C and that we're launching in retail very soon. And so, now it's at a stage where he'll hand over to somebody else. He'll need to figure out what he wants to do outside of Oddbox. So I think the dynamics will change, and that might actually be a bit more challenging now that he's less involved in the business.
I had the pleasure of talking to Deepak before this. One of the questions I asked him was, what's unique about you from his perspective? What do you think he said?
I think probably kind of my optimism and drive and positivity, and always looking forward. I'm not very good at celebrating the wins. I'm not very good at kind of pausing and thinking about success that we've had. I'm always more focused on what's next. What do we need to do to get to the next level? But yes, overall, I've got quite a positive outlook on things.
Here you go. You can watch what he said. Press play in the top right.
Her balanced approach, and that might seem like a cop out, but actually it's like her star sign is Libra, which is balance. But I think she's, if you and you know, like a lot of her words that are used, this is all about balance. It's about balancing being strict as well as being empathetic, whether that's with our daughter or at work. Mindful and transparent on one side, yet being kind of just on a need to know basis only, and kind of I think balance is a word that makes it unique.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm pretty balanced, and sometimes I wish I was a bit more. Deepak is, I would say, when he's in something, he's all in. I will also make sure that I go to the gym, because that's what helps me kind of keeps my energy, and not shout at everyone when there's stress. I'm also kind of able to balance our family life and Oddbox.
Your tagline for Oddbox is eat good, do good, stay odd.
Yep.
How do you stay odd?
I'm not sure I'm very odd. I think I'm actually quite ordinary. Um, but but in some ways, what we meant, or what for me staying odd means, is it it don't need to be innovative. It's not about EVs. It's not about rocket to the moon. It's about challenging the small things, um, and and going back to what is commonsensical. So it's a different view on what being odd. It's not necessarily being eccentric. It's sometimes about going back to kind of what our grandparents used to do, which actually makes complete common sense. And Oddbox was founded on that premise, that let's go back to kind of we grow a lot. We should eat what's being grown. It's not innovative, and a lot of people say, "Oh yes, I've had that idea." So Oddbox is not an innovative idea. A lot of people who've thought about starting their business have actually thought about doing that. It's that oddness of continuously thinking about does the way we operate make sense, or should we challenge that?
Well, you've been very, very generous with your time coming here and sharing all of your incredible experiences. And so, with that, I'd love to finish on if we assume that this is listened to by lots of entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and generally ambitious people.
Yep.
What is something a community of those sorts of people could support you with?
See, I've had a lot of support, and people always talk about the how much they love the brand. So what I would say is actually not for me to support, but pay it forward, because that's kind of the best you can do. Be open and honest. Don't necessarily kind of talk about only the great things which you've achieved, which happen in your business, and anybody can start a business. People say, the traits of an entrepreneur is that when you were at 10 years old, then you would have your lemonade stand. And I never did that. I don't think I had kind of a lot of traits of what people would say is an entrepreneur. A lot of people have ambition and drive, and that's what being an entrepreneur is. We've had some luck with Oddbox in a sense that we found a mission which resonates with people, a product which kind of, at least for a niche of 50,000 people, feel like kind of the right way to do something good. We've been lucky to have to find the right people to join us on the journey. So yeah, there's kind of a combination of luck and resilience.
Given that we've spoken about specifically women and how there's a confidence gap,
Yeah.
what's something you would hope the audience would do to help increase female founders' confidence?
I don't know. That's a difficult one. So what's I think being kind of as a man, being there and cheering on women, challenging women to take that next step, even when they're not sure. Being aware of some of these bias, educating yourself. So Sally from Carwow is actually trying to get more people to learn about the project that they are leading, the confidence project that they are leading. So yeah, could be something. Reach out to Sally Foot at Carwow to learn about that project.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Really enjoyable chat, and thanks for having me.